Alright, we should be live. We are back. We are working on Loot the Pathfinder. Here he is in case you haven't seen him before or you need a reminder of how he works. And he is down to 99 spells, so technically, if I don't want to play more than one singular land in the entire deck, he is done. But we should probably make room for a few more lands. So just scroll down past all of these, all my various notes and things that I need in order to make my videos, and just get a reminder of what we have left. So Counterspell, Soul Ring, Mana Drain, Mystic Remora, Nature's Lore. Maybe I don't need the Mystic Remora. Loot does draw us a bunch of cards, but if I take out too many of the card draw spells, then it's all in on him. Excuse me. As is normally the case, I was fine until I started talking, and now my throat is clogged with mucus. Try and wash it away with water, and that will do nothing at first, normally. And like 20 minutes from now, it will finally clear out. Skull Rack, Burgeoning, Bid, Wood Elves, Abundance, Exploration. I'm thinking about Burgeoning. If I don't have enough card draw, the Exploration, the Azusa, we got rid of Bonnie Paul. So I do kind of still want to keep all three of them. I'm trying to remember if we have any other ramp that puts land from our hand into play. Mystic Snake, if we can get to the end with it. Seaborn Muse is fine. Long-term plans. Fabricate. O-Stone. Eternal Witness. Azusa. Steve. Firemind. Tidespout Tyrant. Dryad. Bright Earth. Zendikar. Beast Within. Arn Liberated. Blasphemous Axe. Snapcaster Mage. Closet, Deadeye, Cyclonic Rift, Vandal Blast. Want to keep the bracers, Reality Shift, Tireless Tracker. Rashmi might still be able to go. Disallow, Heroic Intervention, Zero of Tumbling Sands. So I have the Vizier, and I have what's her name from the House of Healing from Lord of the Rings. To untap Loot, so that way when we blink him, we get to activate two of his abilities in a turn cycle before we blink him again, ideally. Or possibly all three, depending on when we blink him. Like, if it's an end of turn blink, then he comes back. We get to draw 3 cards or bolt. We untap on our turn. We get to draw 3 cards or bolt. You know, whichever one we didn't do. And then end of turn he gets blinked again. Because he's going to come back untapped in theory with haste. So maybe we don't need the Vizier and the... whatever her name actually is. Yeah, I can see that. Raminap, Locust God, Immortal Sun. The host. Alright, we have Tadiova and AC to help us draw more cards. Also, Niv Mizzet's not bad for that. Karn Great Creator, Lazatep, Oko, Thassa. Ominous Seas is fine, but maybe it's not quite good enough. Like, if I've already drawn 7, I have 93 cards. Draw 2 is 91, so if it gets down into play on turn 2, which is like the ideal scenario at maximum, it's making 11 Krakens. If I drew my entire deck and it didn't die. The thing is, it's realistically going to be probably like 2 8/8s long term for 2 mana. Which is not terrible, but at the same time, I usually don't run things like Tarmogoyf, who are just giant bodies for 2 mana, so. And it does take time to make the 2 8/8, so even if it is only 2 mana for both of them, it's not like they come down on turn 2 and start to swing on turn 3. Like, the first one's not showing up until, like, turn 5, I want to say. Because I'll have drawn potentially 5 cards over the course of that, plus 3 cards from loot. So I would need to have drawn like 2 more cards because this thing wasn't in play when I drew the first 2. So even if I ramped into loot and activated the blue card draw, we're still looking at like turn 9 for the first 8/8. That's under ideal circumstances. Because it's not like we're going to draw 8 cards in a turn the way you can with some decks. Yeah, maybe we just ditch the Ominous Seas then. It's a neat idea, but I think cards like the Locust God and the Niv Mizzets that deal damage when I draw cards are just doing a better job of converting cards into damage quickly. Invasion, Grazlix. That's true. Grazlix is another card draw engine in the deck. It's blocking a lot of my stuff is not really where you want to be at. They're all going to bounce back to my hand. Yeah, I think Teferi also does a better job than Ominous Seas at making dire threats relatively quickly. I don't know, maybe the Nissa and the Lotus Cobra aren't that impressive. There's Yorith. Cut her. Like, we do ramp with lands pretty well, so there's going to be a lot of times where Nissa and Lotus Cobra are like 2 to 3 extra mana in a turn. That is somewhat tempting. I definitely want to try and keep the Storm of Saruman. Storm of Saruman, the thing I'm most envision doing with it is after loot dies, casting a spell and then casting loot from the command zone and getting a second non-legendary loot hanging out with the original. That is almost entirely what I envision doing with, like, yes, we will probably copy another spell or two along the way, but just getting, like, spell into loot into extra loot seems way too strong. It's fine. Healer's good. Tutor, 3 visits. Play line of anticipation. Lostborn Hydra can still potentially go. Force of negation, force of vigor. Yeah, Provisioner is just a better Nisa, but also, how many elementals and elves do I have? Like, what are the odds that Nisa would actually hit this guy if I played 2 lands in the same turn? Placer Kitten, Scavenging Ooze, Arcane Signet, Song of the Dryads, Fierce Guardianship, Deflecting Swat. Possible Alondra is too slow. Alright, so we get rid of these 3. Brings us down to 96. Clear those out. Alright, so real quick, see how many elf cards we have. We have Wood Elves is 1. It's true, we have like a couple of mana dorks. Well, not mana dorks, but things that, yeah, Oracle Moldiah. Rashmi's an elf. Nisa's already in play in this situation. Refueler is not a terrible one to find. They do go to hand. Tireless Provisioner. We're up to 6 with Sutina. Okay. So we have 6. We do one elemental, 2 elementals. Oh, it's an elemental Hydra. 3 elementals. Alright, so we have 3 elementals and 6 Hydras, so there are 10 cards we can hit, which is a small list, but it's kind of all over the place as far as power levels go. So Nisa's not guaranteed to hit anything that we absolutely need. The thing is, I don't think I can take out the Wood Elves and the, what's her name, without replacing them with different spells that fetch lands. Which in turn makes me wonder if if I do that, I'm going down on creatures. I was gonna say, if I replace them with, instants and sorceries that fetch more lands, then I go down on creatures for things like the nanogene conversion and the flip side of pugilist. I have fewer creatures to all suddenly become loot out of nowhere. Also, they're fine blink targets to go get more lands for 2 of them, so I was trying to guarantee I hit specific things. It'd be the Avenger and the Titan in the elemental category, and Refueler, Provisioner. Yeah, that's kind of it for the elves, I think. Yeah, I don't think it's gonna pan out. Trying to cut those cards for the other ones. I do wonder if I can cut the Hydra. So it comes into play. It's a 1/1. I play a fetch. It's a 2/2. I crack the fetch. It's a 4/4. So one more land and it's an 8/8. And I think at 3 mana, an 8/8 Trampler is pretty impressive, but it's also not doing anything when it comes in. So it's a terrible blink target. I don't have ways to give it haste. Yeah, I think these are arguments to get rid of the Hydra. Like, it's a terrible blink target, which is a thing that my deck is doing, and I don't have a way to give it haste. So, if it is that scary, it still has to live a turn cycle before it gets to do its cool thing, and I don't think I should just sit around and wait for an entire turn cycle to pass. Yeah, do I have any other creatures that are no value the turn they come down like that? So we can probably lose all of them. I think the Hydra might be the only one, but I need to double check now. What else gets a land? Mystic Snake is a counterspell. So Seaborn Muse doesn't give me any value, but she also starts working before the turn cycle has passed, like the very next opponent. Like, if it doesn't die from an instant speed removal spell or activation, then I get to untap immediately on the next player's turn. So it does technically work. Eternal Witness grabs back its spell. Azusa, as long as I have lands when I cast her, lets me play the extra lands. Because, in fact, it definitely lets me play the extra lands with the way Magic's rules work. So, since you can't respond to a land drop, and I would be the active player, I would have priority when Azusa resolves. I can actually play out the extra lands from my hand before anybody could do anything, as long as I don't trigger anything that players could respond to. So I could actually guarantee playing out the 2 extra lands normally with Azusa. If any of my landfall triggers are in play, they can kill her before I can play the second extra land, the 3rd land for the turn. Steve can immediately go get a land, and it's a sacrifice ability on top of that, so killing Steve doesn't help. Niv and the other Niv only matter if I can cast a spell or if I can draw a card with this Niv or cast an instant or sorcery with the other one or draw a card with the other one, then I can start getting the damage triggers out of them immediately, which, based on how the deck works, should be a thing I can do. Tidespout gets immediate value if I can follow it up with a cheap spell. Avamaya Dryad gets a land immediately. Woodfall Primus kills something immediately. Oracle, I only get immediate value if I know the top card of my deck is a land, or if it happens to be a land. Because I can... Same thing that I can do with things like Azusa, where I can just play the land off the top of my deck immediately before anybody has priority to respond. And given that I'm running top and the scroll rack, we should have a decent idea of what's on top of my deck. Avenger of Zendikar immediately makes the plant tokens. Snapcaster Mage gets back instants and sorceries for the one shot. I mean, I have enough interaction on instants and sorceries that Snapcaster is probably still fine. And I have a few counter spells that he can flash back if I need to. Deadeye Navigator does get immediate value if the other creature I want to pair with him is in play. and I have 8 mana when I cast him. So I have the 6 mana to cast him and the 2 mana to immediately activate, get value. Tireless Tracker I can get with a landfall. Rashmi does not get immediate value. She has to live until at least the opponent's turn, similar to the Seedborn Muse. But then I also have to have an instant I can cast. And Rashmi's already kind of on the fence. I think I can afford to cut Rashmi also. Nimble Obstructionist's value is entirely in his cycling ability. Locust God, well, Raminap I can get immediate value if I have a land to play from my graveyard the turn I cast it. Locust God I can get the immediate value if I can draw cards. So same as the Nivs. Real Sun, Helm of the Host. Padiova I can follow up with a landfall trigger. This other Niv. Thassa needs to get to the end of my turn for her value, but she's also indestructible, so that goes a long way to making sure they need an instant speed way to exile an enchantment most of the time in order to get Thassa off the table before I get some amount of value out of her. Pugilist we're not running for the front side, so the fact that he's a mediocre creature on the front doesn't super matter. So Grazilix, to get immediate value, I have to play him and then attack with things that I want, that I would either be okay with them getting blocked and bouncing back to my hand for value, or that will get me to draw cards. That being said, it's not terrible. He's the closest one so far besides Seedborn Muse to just not doing anything the turn he comes down, but... In fact, Seaborn Muse definitely does not do anything the turn she comes down. She has to make it to the first turn after mine to do anything. But similar to Grazilix, it just matters, do they have an instant speed removal spell that's going to punish me for attacking before blockers are declared. Hullbreaker Horror. Same thing as the Tide Spout. If I can follow it up with a spell, I get to guarantee at least one bounce. Also, the fact that it's flash means I might be able to put into play where it's less vulnerable. Probably still going to be vulnerable, though. It's really hard for multiple players to not have anything available. The Hullbreaker, similar to Tide Spout, is a little bit iffy because they're so expensive and I have to follow them up with a spell to get immediate value. Titan of Industry is definitely immediate value. So is Atali. Nisa has to have a landfall trigger. So now we come to Menaldor, who is already kind of on the fence about. So this one actually has to survive the entire turn cycle and then get to attack and deal damage in order for its ability to trigger. So I think we're going to cut Menaldor. Geralf can get immediate value if I have any spell to follow him up with, because in theory he will have at least been the first spell cast by me this turn, so anything I cast after him in the same turn will make a 2-2. Refueler can get immediate value if Lute's already used his Ancestral and or his Lightning Bolt, and I want to use the same one again. So Niv can technically work, in that if Lute has his Lightning Bolt available, I can drop Nin, activate the Lightning Bolt on 7 mana, and somebody has to kill Niv immediately, or I get to draw 3 cards while dealing the 3 damage, as long as I'm going face with it. Power's Provisioner, same as the Tracker. Nantuku's... Well, no, because we can bestow it, and then, assuming the bestow resolves and nobody has any responses, I can immediately landfall, and at the very least make the 1/1, but probably make the copy instead. Displacer Kitten, I need to follow up with a spell. Scavenging Ooze can just immediately start eating graveyards. AC, I can follow up with a land drop. Alright, so Sean, I need to be able to attack with loot immediately afterwards to get value from him. So he's in the same boat as all the other ones. If there's an instant speed spell that can take him out before his ability would trigger, then he doesn't get to do his thing. And he just died with no effect whatsoever. I do think that the ability to produce a loot the same turn I cast him, though, makes him worthwhile. Alondra the Sky Dreamer, I need to follow her up with a card draw. Which I do have some, but I don't actually have a ton of card draw, depending on... And all of the card draw is going to be contingent on something else happening and her being vulnerable. But a lot of the things that would draw me the cards are more the problem than she is. I might still be able to cut her. As we're very all or nothing as far as the card draw goes, so... Either we're drawing tons of cards, or we're drawing like one extra card. That's it. Which could still make the Drake, so any of the landfall draw cards are similar. I don't know that she's necessary, though. Like I said, I have to immediately follow her with drawing my second card if I want to get the Drake out of her before she dies. Yeah, I'm gonna let her sit here for a little while longer, but I could definitely see getting rid of her. So Sultina just gets the land immediately. The Ambassador and Mira both ETB to do their things. The Ambassador immediately gives me the 3 tickets and lets me spend them. And Mira immediately opens an attraction. Oh no, she has to cast... No, she's not ETB. She's an instant or sorcery. Opens the attraction. It is a cast trigger, though, so it's going to be... As long as her coming into play didn't trigger anything, I should be able to hold priority and immediately cast, something like Farseek or anything, really, to get the attraction open. But I do need to be able to follow her up with one of those, so that's important to note. I did forget that she doesn't open one immediately. So Max is kind of in the same boat as Geralf in that, I forget gender on the character, that they, if I play a spell immediately after them, then I get to untap my creature and investigate. So as long as I have a follow-up spell. Yeah, I've never actually seen Stranger Things, so I don't know. Alright, so we can get rid of these 3. Clear them off. So that gets rid of 3 creatures that don't really get to do anything the turn they come into play. Sorry. Things bothering my eye. It's tearing up. Can't quite see. Okay. That should be better. Alright, so we got rid of all of those. Yeah, so right now, most of my card draw is coming from clue tokens from two of my cards, the Mystic Remora, landfall triggers. In fact, one of the clue makers is a landfall trigger, so. And Loot himself, who is such an insane card draw engine that I feel pretty confident running him as my main way to draw extra cards. So we know we have access to him all the time. Um, Technomage. No, this is going to be somewhere between a high 3 and a low 4 on the new bracket system. But no, this is definitely not a CEDH caliber deck. Or at least it's not intended to be. If it accidentally turns out that it is, then good for Loot, but I'm not intending for him to go up against decks like that. Yeah, I haven't actually counted all of his game changer cards, so I don't know if he actually is a 4 by default. But I think that he is. I'm imagining most of my decks wind up in like the 4 power level, so. But yeah, I would not expect him to actually be particularly good against CDH, mostly because I don't play CDH that much. I think I've played like maybe 2 or 3 games at that level. Oh, he definitely is. He's got a lot of different builds. I could have built him as a storm commander, and I think he would be insane at that point. But I'm just trying to build a fun value deck for him, where I take advantage of all the extra spells that I'm drawing to cast a whole lot of things. Then possibly turn everything into loot real quick for fun and profit. Hey, what else? Definitely not need with him. Yeah, we're all the way through the list again. And all I'm thinking about is stuff that if I'm keeping this card, I should probably add the other thing that's very similar to it, so kind of need to cut more stuff first. Alright, Sky Dreamer. Every time I see you, I think I should probably seriously consider cutting you. We're just gonna do that. Rather than keep second guessing myself on that one. Alright, so what do we have left in your ramp spells, Luke? Can we cut anything else from down here? Full Ring, Nature's Lore, Burgeoning, Wood Elves, Exploration, Azusa, Sakura Tribe, Farseek. Like maybe the Dryad or maybe Sultina or Sutina. Because that would be one less elf that we don't necessarily need. So that way we wouldn't be hitting them with Nisa. Maybe have anything in the interaction list that we could cut. Allow Oko, Hull Breacher, offer Titan, Force, Other Force, Song, do free spells. Not really. Like, I might have to cut stuff from down here just because we don't have room, but none of these feel terrible with what we already have. Alright, so let's cut Alondra. This is down to 92. Alright. How do we approach loot from a different thing so I can figure out more cards that we can get rid of? Because he doesn't really have any other, like, sub-lists we can do. There's not a whole lot of overlap in any of his other cards. Like, they're all kind of all over the place with the generic description of, this will let me get value out of drawing all these extra cards and having more spells to play. Let's at least start from the bottom and work up this time. That way I encounter them in a different order. So the main thing with Mira is trying to get Hall of Mirrors into play. We have to have 10 different attractions. We'll have the 2 token makers, so the balloon stand and clown extruder, so that way if we make everything into a copy of loot, we have extra tokens. We have the card draw, the scry one, the hall. Merry-go-round essentially makes loot unblockable. Pirate ship can untap loot in a turn and give him an extra combat step. And then the last 3 are basically garbage. If we keep the ambassador, we get access to the costume shop, I think, gives out tickets, or does that just let me place stickers? Alright. Put a sticker on a non-land permanent, so it doesn't give me any tickets to work with. We can't get tickets from any of the other ones because they're all acorns, so... Yeah, loot does not need a 1/1 counter. Stupid gift shop making a pink teddy bear instead of something else. Because I would actually run the gift shop if we could pull that one off. Don't really need the haunted house. Information booth is the card draw. Yeah, it's create 2 treasures, open an attraction. I mean, the storybook ride is not unplayable, since it won't keep the things in exile forever. Trash bin is not unplayable. Puddle of Love does blink loot if we want it to, depending on what the opponent chooses as their creature. And we get to decide afterwards, so we know if we're going to target loot to blink it, or target something like Titan of Industry to fight it instead. Alright, so yeah, we do have enough attractions, just barely. And some of them are mediocre. Alright. Do we have enough stickers with the ambassador? I know there were enough that I should be able to... No, wait, that was the right spot. Infinity sticker sheet. So, Flicked wasn't really anything. Flying isn't really anything. I want to sack loot. Proliferate doesn't do anything. Death Touch Lifelink is a shrug. Leaves the battlefield, draw a card, because we're blinking loot a lot, and turns into the Eldrazi. That was like one of the better ones we could have. Don't need double prowess. Don't need tap to deal 2 damage. Attack Scry 1, leaves the battlefield, may destroy an artifact or enchantment is good. Don't need Outlast, and dies get 7 tickets. At least I don't think so. If the tickets are actually going to be a thing, the first time Loot dies, getting the 7 tickets would basically let him pay for any of the other things. When does he... So he enters the battlefield, I get 3 sticker... or 3 tickets, then can place a sticker. So I can only place the stickers when he's coming in right now. So even if I got the 7 tickets, and if the ambassador dies, then I don't have a way to spend them anymore. I don't really need the haste and cast from graveyard. Target a non-land card, or you may cast target non-land card from your graveyard this turn. No. Yeah, I don't need the Aristocrat's Drain. Alright. We have the deals combat damage, lets me exile. Tap to untap another target permanent. I mean, the first one is still playable, even if we want to put the other thing on something, so that way loot can be untapped. Untap target permanent is only okay with loot. But would still be one that I would consider running. +2/+0, enters the battlefield under your control. This permanent deals 2 damage to target player. Don't need food tokens. Dies, destroy target non-land permanent. Yeah, this is one that I might include, but I don't like to fill out the roster. But leaves the battlefield, destroy target creature with power 4 or greater. Yes, so we're up to 5. Does not need infect, trample, monstrosity. No. No. Gain 2 life, vigilance reaches, whatever. Menace persist. Eh. No. Whenever this creature attacks, get a ticket. Same problem as the dies get 7. Plus he has to attack twice just to get the tickets he just spent back. Draw a card, then discard a card. Whenever this creature attacks, gain 3 life and draw a card. That one's fine. Loot's going to be attacking fairly often. +1/-1. Dies, you may put X/1/1 counters. Attacks, create a treasure. Gains flying until end of turn. Bushido double strike. Gains all creature types. Caster copy an instant or sorcery spell. Draw a card. It's not terrible. That's like 6.5. Need any of those. Dies, you may return target creature to its owner's hand. Creatures you control get +1/+1. Yeah, don't need to give loot threshold, I don't think. The squirrel touch on the 1 card is not actually bad if we're going to turn everything into loot at some point in time. Or squirrel link, rather. Dies, return target non-creature, non-land card from your graveyard to your hand. Deals combat damage to a player. That player mills twice that many cards. No. No. Really? New. Bolster 1, indestructible. Switches creature's power and toughness until end of turn. When this creature attacks, it gets +5/+5. Meh. I mean, putting both of those on loot makes him a 9 power double striker, which is funny, but ultimately not great. Double Exalted Shadow. Hellbent and sacrificing, never. Whenever land enters the battlefield under your control, put a 1/1 counter on this permanent. I mean, we could take the make an opponent discard a card. Yeah, we're still sitting at like 8 for the ambassador. Like, we're just barely there. I suppose we could include the one where it deals damage, draw that many cards, since loot has double strike. But yeah, we're looking at like 9, but that's still enough to guarantee at least one of them will be good, because we get 3 at random. So if we're at 9 and a couple of them are iffy, one of them should still be good almost every single time. So yeah, not quite enough reason to cut the ambassador or Mira. Plus, it amuses me to have loot playing in the theme park, so that might be good enough reason not to cut them. Well, that ate up a ton of time, but it did not get any extra things off the list. Yeah, we only cut 7 cards today. Alright, let's see if I can find a few more that I'm missing. Here, back down to the ramp. Can I actually cut the Jumpstart Elf? Sutina. Still be fine. Ones that actually search for lands. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Oh, we cut the sword already. 6. She'd be 7. Yeah, I probably don't want to cut her then. Even with all the fetches and the extra lands coming into play, can I cut Nisa or Lotus Cobra then? We have 7 things that can put extra lands into play from our deck. The rest of these can put extra lands into play from our hand. Versioning doesn't really help with that, though, so that's mostly Azusa exploration. Because the versioning's going to put into play on the opponent's turn, normally. Since it can only trigger off of them putting a land into play from their hand, not putting lands into play from card effects. They do have enough ways to trigger them to get the extra mana, and I can play multiple lands in a turn. Yeah, it feels incorrect to cut them just yet. Maybe, though. Maybe somewhere down the line we'll have to cut them. I don't want to cut any of the tutors yet. All of them have at least a couple hits that are really strong for this deck to get loot going, so. Yeah, I've just slowed down too much in what I'm cutting. I think I might be done for today. is a little on the frustrating side, but yeah, we're at the 50-minute mark, so I think we're gonna call it there for right now. We'll pick back up probably tomorrow to work on loot some more. So yeah, it's gonna do it for me for right now. I'll be back on in a little while doing some drafting. Probably still alchemy, aether drift, and later tonight we'll be doing Baldur's Gate with my brother and his friend. But that's gonna do it for me for right now. So thank you for watching, and I will see you next time. Have a good rest of your day.